everybody, good afternoon to you all. If it is afternoon for you. For me it's afternoon, so if it's not for you, then good morning, good evening, good day. If you are new to my channel, my name is Tatum and I like to make videos on mental health, particularly eating disorders. And surprise, that's what we're doing again today. And if you have been watching my channel for a while, I'm sure that you're probably sick of me introducing myself, as you already know who I am, but sorry. Anyways, today I was like not really feeling it. I was just kind of not in the mood to do anything. I didn't want to go anywhere, or get ready, or live life. Oh my gosh, that sounded really morbid. I didn't mean it like that. I just did not want to engage in the day, essentially. So I decided to practice opposite action instead, which I've described on this channel before, I think, what that is. But basically, I just wanted to lay around in my sweatpants and watch TV all day, so I decided to get ready and film a video that I had planned to make for you guys. So that's what I'm doing, and honestly, it feels a lot better to have showered and gotten ready and turned on the camera and started talking and just doing things with my day, because I know that although sitting around all day is what I wanted to do, it wasn't going to help me feel any better mentally. So when I lay around during the day, I go crazy. Like, I have to have an agenda or I lose my mind. Anyways, now that I've rambled on for a minute or so, I'm just going to get into the video, which is what not to say to somebody that has an eating disorder. There are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of things that you should not say to somebody with an eating disorder. And I'm going to highlight some of them, get into detail on a few of them, and then just list a bunch at the end of this video without actually getting too much into detail, because I just don't have enough time. Along with listing some of the things that you should not be saying to somebody with an eating disorder, I'm also going to be highlighting the things that you should not say around them and the things that you should not do around them. And I'm not listing everything because it's very specific to the person, but I'm just going to list the general things that I think affect the majority of people with eating disorders. So after watching this video, I think it might be a good idea, if you know somebody with an eating disorder that is fairly vocal with you about it, or that you know might open up to you when you ask this question, I think it would be good just to ask them, hey, what are some things that I can not do that might be harmful to you and your recovery, or things that I shouldn't say to you. The way that you behave in your everyday life might be perfectly fine around the vast majority of people, but I think it would be important to censor yourself just a little bit around those that you know have eating disorders. You might not understand the reason why you shouldn't say and do some of these things, but keep in mind that it's a disorder, and because you don't have experience with it, you're just not going to be able to understand the situation as well as somebody who has had an eating disorder could understand it. And so you should still be respectful of what is and isn't appropriate to say to them or do around them, and to make sure that you're treating the situation with some delicacy. And the first thing that you should not be saying to somebody that has an eating disorder is, you look healthy. And when I was in treatment, I was put onto weight restoration. And I know that this is not the case for everybody, but for me it was. When I got out, I had gained quite a bit of weight, and that's because I needed to. And I needed to have that much more weight on me to be healthy. And that's exactly what I heard when I got out. Now, that kind of comment doesn't upset me. It makes me actually happy to hear that, and I take it as a compliment. But when you're really engrossed in an eating disorder, and when you're trying to get out of one, that comment is just most of the time not going to be taken that way, and it's not going to be seen as a compliment. And I'm sure that all you're trying to do by saying that is be supportive and kind, but keep in mind that when an eating disorder is fairly active, it has a way of twisting your words around and making them sound like something negative when they're not. So it's just important to be cautious with the words that you're using, because a lot of the time, healthy can mean fat to people with eating disorders. And I know that it's very difficult to consciously be thinking about everything that you're doing and saying being the right thing or the wrong thing. So I don't think you have to go that far with it. Just make sure that you're censoring yourself as much as possible, but not to the point where you feel like that's all you're thinking about and that you're having a hard time actually interacting with this person. So just make sure that you're trying, and I think that's what will really matter to them. So in this situation, instead of using the word healthy, you could say something like, "You look so much happier now." And I think that that would get through to them a lot more, and it's not body focused, it's not image focused whatsoever. And one thing that my dietitian said to me when I got out of treatment that really made me feel good was she said that she saw light in my eyes that she hadn't seen before. Number 2 is to just not comment on their appearance whatsoever. One thing that happens so often and is so dangerous is that people, when they lose weight due to their eating disorders, often get praise for it. And I know that a lot of the time that when we praise people for weight loss, that we don't know that they have an eating disorder. So that's why I feel like we should just not comment on people's appearances at all, regardless of if we know that they have an eating disorder or not. People will say things like, "You look so great," and ask you how you did it, and sometimes they even criticize their own body when they're complimenting yours. So although these kinds of comments are intended to be compliments and they're coming from a good place, all it's going to do is make the person think that they're doing a good job and that they should keep engaging in these behaviors even though it's unhealthy for them, because they're getting results that people seem to like. And that is obviously very, very dangerous. And then when people gain weight, regardless of if they have an eating disorder or not, people can make really rude comments and assumptions that can be just as damaging. It also really, really perpetuates the belief that our value is based off of our bodies and what we look like, and that really makes the eating disorder stronger because it is validating it. It's validating what the eating disorder is telling this person. So you should just never comment on what somebody looks like. You don't know what they're going through, why they lost weight, why they gained weight, and chances are they're not going to share that with you. So I think it's better to just not say anything at all, because it can be really damaging for people that don't have eating disorders, for people that do. That can actually, I feel like, lead to the development of an eating disorder if they don't already have one. Although I will say that if you have somebody in your life that seems like they've become fairly unhealthy, then it might be wise to say something like, "I'm worried about you." And so then you're not saying something that's appearance focused, but you're simply stating that you have concern. I know that with my own personal eating disorder, if nobody had ever said anything to me at all, I would have thought that I was fine and that I looked fine, because my reality was not reality. So this next one also goes along with commenting on their appearance, but I felt like it needed its own spotlight because it's just a very, very bad thing to say to somebody with an eating disorder. And this one is, "You don't look like you have an eating disorder." Eating disorders don't have a look. And even though there are multiple eating disorders, there are so many different kinds of eating disorders, society seems to think that the only image for an eating disorder is that of somebody with anorexia, and that you can only have an eating disorder if you look like you have anorexia, which a large portion of people with anorexia aren't even underweight. So that is very much a stigma, that you have to look like that to have an eating disorder. Never associate how somebody looks with how much they're struggling. When you tell somebody that they do not look like they have an eating disorder, this is going to make them feel like they're failing, and it's going to drive them even deeper into the behaviors that they might be having or doing. A really common belief amongst people with eating disorders is that they're not sick enough, which makes me so sad that so many people think that, and I have thought that several times. That's been a big part of my eating disorder too. But saying this, telling somebody that they don't look like they have an eating disorder, can really make this belief that they're not sick enough true in their mind. It can validate that, and it's not true at all. You're always sick enough for health, and no matter how much weight you've gained or you've lost, no matter how far into the recovery process you are or how sucked into behaviors you are always always deserving of help. And if you think that you have an eating disorder, then that means that you probably do. Number 4 is to not comment on other people's appearances around them or to them. And for pretty much the same reasons, you should not be commenting on their appearance, you shouldn't be commenting on others' appearances as well. I know that for me, I spent and still spend a good amount of time comparing myself to everybody that I walked by in the store, literally everyone. If you're pointing out all of the flaws in other people's appearances or the things that you like about other people's appearances, they're going to think that they need to look this way to meet your ideal expectations, and that the way that they do look is not acceptable to you if it doesn't match up with what you've said about other people. Number 5 is to not criticize your own appearance around them. And I know that I'm talking a lot about appearance in this video, but I feel like that's a very, very common issue, is for people to make a lot of appearance-based comments to and around people with eating disorders. And so I really just wanted to highlight that because I feel like it's really important, but I do have other things that you shouldn't say and do that aren't as appearance focused. So wait around for those if you want to hear the other things that I have to say. So again, for the same reasons you shouldn't do the other things, you shouldn't do this one. If you sit there saying things like, I look fat and I should change this about myself and that about myself, then they're probably going to think things like, if you look fat, that must mean that I look really fat. And that's just going to give them a much more skewed concept of what they should look like and what they do look like than they already have. Which, I've said this in another video and I'll say it again, but I hate the word fat. I hate it because society's just put so many negative connotations behind it, but it doesn't have to be a bad word. But anyways, I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't ever talk about those feelings that you have about yourself, because I think it is really important to verbalize your insecurities, just don't do it with them. But I will say that if you're feeling accepting of your body, then having that kind of energy around can actually be really beneficial to somebody with an eating disorder. At least for me. I'm not going to speak for everybody. I have this friend named Mia who has been in a few of my older vlogs, and she has helped me a lot with my own body image. Even though she has a lot of her own body insecurities herself, like most people do, she has also demonstrated a lot of body positivity that's really helped me to put things into perspective and just not be so harsh with the way that I judge myself. Number 6 is another thing that you should just not be saying, and that is just eat. Wow. You really think that you found the answer there, don't ya? Sorry to break it to you, but you did not. Do you ever hear people say things in comments or in real life or whatever it is that are like, somebody should throw that girl a burger and stuff like that? Because those comments really just piss me the hell off. Making the assumption that all a person that has an eating disorder needs to do is eat is just so rude for a variety of reasons. For one, it makes it seem like you don't think that this person is smart enough to know that that's what they're supposed to do in order to live. Shocker, people with eating disorders are very aware of that. If you find yourself saying this or even thinking this, do your research. A lot of research before you speak. Eating disorders are so complex, and it's not even about the food. Food's the coping mechanism. Number 7 is, I'm proud of you for eating. Although this may seem like a nice thing to say, it isn't. Or at least it's not helpful. It may be nice, but it's not helpful. I personally hated when people said this to me because it made me feel like I was being praised for something trivial that a child knows how to do. And I know that that's not the case, but that's how I felt. And it also made me feel like people were watching me and focusing on everything that I was eating, and that made me less inclined to eat how I should be and eat around people. So yes, it definitely is something to be proud of, but they're not going to feel like it is, because when you have an eating disorder, you're constantly focusing on what you're going to eat, what you haven't eaten, what you did eat already, what you're gonna eat the next day, what you had the day beforehand. So to be sitting there having that voice make you feel like you're doing something wrong, it can be really hard when somebody comments on your food because it might feel like you're being watched or you're being judged, and it can become a lot harder to make recovery-directed choices. Number 8 is more of a tip as to how to help, and this is to get rid of diet food and diet talk. If you live with this person, make sure that you do not have diet sodas, keto bars, whatever it is laying around your house, and that you just don't talk about dieting at all around them. Don't bring it up. If you're on a diet, don't mention that. Don't say anything about it. In fact, I would say if you do live with this person, then it would be best probably to just not be on a diet at all, because what isn't going to help is to have somebody that is making all of their choices based off of rules around food in the house. And so it would be nice for them to have healthy eating habits demonstrated for them. I personally think that dieting is a scam and that it should just be done away with completely, and that all diets are crappy and they don't work and they just mess with people's minds, and they are just there to make big corporations lots of money. But we could get into that some other time in a different video. I know that for me, I had completely lost all concept of what normal was, and that it would have been helpful to have people around me that were eating intuitively. And the general guideline is 3 meals and 3 snacks. Eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full, which that can be very, very hard for somebody with an eating disorder. But if that isn't hard for you, it would be great to demonstrate that for the person that you know has an eating disorder. Make sure that you're not talking about tracking your calories when you're around them, how much you've exercised, how much weight you've lost or gained in the past, what your current weight is, numbers of any kind really, BMI, and that you're not labeling certain foods as bad or unhealthy. So I have a lot more things that I feel like should definitely not be said to somebody with an eating disorder, but I am not gonna get super into detail because this video would be very, very long, and as much as you don't want to sit here and watch an hour-long video, I don't want to sit here and film it. So I'm just going to list them off, and I feel like the vast majority of them should be self-explanatory, but if they're not, you can always message me with any questions you might have, and you could even just ask in the comments down below. Somebody might reply to you, who knows. So the next one, number 9, is how do you eat all of that and not gain any weight? Don't by any means ever say that to anyone. Number 10 is, wow, you ate a lot or you eat a lot. That's just gonna make their eating disorder be like, look, I told you you shouldn't have done that, that was bad, and it's gonna make them feel ashamed and embarrassed. It's just not a nice comment, so don't say it, please. I'm asking on behalf of me and everybody with an eating disorder, because that's not helpful and it's actually kind of mean. Although I have to say, as somebody with an eating disorder, I have said this to other people that don't have eating disorders before, and that was a mistake on my part. I don't do that anymore. I really just didn't understand that that wasn't an okay thing to say to somebody, and I genuinely just had no idea that that's not a lot, it's just how much people are supposed to eat. Number 11 is there are kids starving in Africa. Could you be putting me on more of a guilt trip? Really? Number 12 is just snap out of it. That's all I have to say about that one. And then number 13 is, I wish I had an eating disorder. No, you don't. There's a lot more. Those are just all of the ones that I could think of. Anyways, thank you guys so much for taking your time out of your day to watch this video, and I would love it if you guys could hit the subscribe button down below if you're not already subscribed, and hit the bell so that you can get notified when I upload. And if you're already subscribed, thanks, I appreciate it. As always, have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys in my next video. So, yeah, that's all. Peace out, everybody.